December 1944. The Ardennes. A gray morning hangs low over the pines. Cold enough to sting the nose and turn breath to vapor. Under a camouflage net, an M10 Wolverine lies frozen into the lee of a ridge north of Neuville, Belgium. Ice plates the hull. Metal bites through wool and leather. Inside, Private First Class Ray Thompson, 22. Kansas-born, methodical, keeps his eye to a fogging periscope while wind sweeps fine snow across the forest road below. At roughly 800 yards, shapes thicken in the mist. Ray Thompson traces them one by one and counts. A Tiger Eye in front, several Panzer IVs behind it, half-tracks with infantry, then trucks with ammunition and fuel. At the tail, a self-propelled anti-aircraft gun. The vehicles hold tight spacing on a road only a little wider than their own width. Banks rise steep on both sides. Timber stands close and straight. He listens to the Wolverine's engine tick as it cools. He hears the loader's muffled breath. The bore still smells of propellant from a clearing drill. Orders say observe only. Report if possible. Wait for confirmation. The radio spits and clears and dies into static. He watches the column creep toward Neuville and thinks about what that means for Bastogne to the south. He draws one slow breath and holds it until the scope clears again. 3 days earlier, in a drafty farmhouse near the Belgian front, the battalion briefing was direct. No one fires without confirmation. Do not reveal positions unless ordered. Lines are unstable. Friendly units shift by the hour. Communications are unreliable. The rule is caution. He wrote the gist on the inside page of a small spiral notebook. Block letters tight and clean, and put it into his jacket. The logic was sound. So was the map. A fast push through Neuville could hook around Bastogne and close a supply road that mattered. He filed that. 2. He spends the next days in the Wolverine with his 3-man crew, dug in with a clean field of fire and fair concealment. The net is broken with branches. Snow is kicked over churned soil. The muzzle is smoked to kill glare. He watches through glass until his eyelashes freeze together and he has to blink them apart. He reads ruts in snow and judges weight by depth. He notes trees gouged to raw wood by track cleats. He logs ranges and bearings, sketches silhouettes, and marks wind speed and direction in his own shorthand. Once, a Panzer crawls along a ravine, a long angle, soft target. He holds fire. Silence is the order. The order is the law. The next dawn, he reviews a different stretch of road and thinks about sequence, not just accuracy. He did not expect to spend the war in a tank destroyer. He grew up on flat prairie where long light made straight shadows, where a boy could measure distance by a grain elevator's noon outline. His father kept an engine shop that smelled of oil and hot metal. His mother taught 7th grade math and made him erase a crooked angle and draw it again until the lines met clean. He enlisted in 1942 for engineering training. Normandy changed the schedule. In the hedgerows, he learned to count seconds between bursts, read a turret's angle, and distinguish the sound of a traverse motor. He watched a half-track burn. He saw a crater where a friend had stood 5 minutes earlier. After that, he kept the notebook closer and spoke less. The men called him the quiet clock. He did not mind. On the morning of December 19th, the fog sits heavy. Sound carries poorly and close. He sees the Tiger first by its squared shoulders against the gray. The long barrel cuts through the mist. The lower hull shows movement. The following vehicles appear in parts: a cupola, a fender, a track stepping across frozen ruts. The half-tracks ride low with packed men. Rifles tucked in to avoid branches. Fuel and ammunition trucks lumber at the rear under iced canvas. All of it moves in steady rhythm. He watches for scouts and studies spacing. It is textbook. Armor in front, infantry in the middle, fuel behind. A flak gun to discourage aircraft he does not expect today. The column slides into the narrowest run just as wind drops snow from fir branches and visibility goes white for a beat and clears. He notes how close the trunks press and how little room there is to turn or reverse if they have to. By protocol, he should try the radio again. He should give a heading and estimated strength. Air or artillery would like this road if either could be reached and cued. He works the set. The headset hisses and moans. A voice cuts once and vanishes. The loader looks to him for instruction. He keeps his eye on the scope. The hillside under the hull is firm. The gun is on. The column is nearly across his frontage. He measures the Tiger's angle relative to the ditch on its right. He measures the slope at the left bank behind the third tank. He touches a pencil nub to the glass to mark a point. Still no order. The rule says hold. The map in his head says the road runs toward Noville and then toward the northern throat of Bastogne. He has watched supply trucks nose through snow to keep that place fed and armed. He runs the short math. If this column crosses the crossroads and turns south, the corridor thins to a thread. He makes a decision. He says it quietly so the crew hears him. Stand by. He does not take the obvious shot. The Tiger's front can shrug his gun at this range and angle. He picks the third vehicle, a Panzer IV showing a sliver of flank as it creeps and corrects. He sets elevation. He breathes out. He fires. The crack is hard in the hull. Recoil hammers his shoulder and the mount. Snow lifts and falls. In the scope, the third vehicle flashes and falls into the ditch. Track torn free. The column stops. Before German gunners can fix his muzzle, he slides the hull a few meters left where a tree trunk covers his former line. The loader drives in the next round. The breech slams. Thompson snaps to the sixth vehicle, a half-track. He fires. The shell hits low. Flame rolls out from under the chassis where fuel and oil meet heat. Men fall into the snow and scramble for cover among thin trunks. He sees gloves, coats, helmets, a man swatting a burning sleeve. He is not counting kills. He is executing a pattern he sketched often and has not used. Break the column at 3. Jam the middle at 6. Take the fuel at 8. He calls the next target, the 8th vehicle, a fuel truck riding soft on its springs. He waits for the slight lift as it bounces a rut. He fires into the bed. The blast is immediate. Heat washes the Wolverine's glasses. Fog turns dirty orange. Snow near the road hisses to slush. The Tiger tries to reverse and cannot. Vehicles block it behind. The road narrows to a funnel. The assistant gunner gives quick range calls that barely matter now. The loader's hands work to a rhythm that strips skin. Thompson moves the hull again. Not far. Just enough to break the enemy's aim. Tracers stitch the space where he was half a minute earlier. He fires at a second half-track that is trying to reach the slope. The shell takes the front axle and opens the engine bay. Steel screams against frozen dirt. Several men do not rise. The forest turns loud. Engines strain and choke. Ammunition cooks off inside wrecks. Orders carry in bursts. Bullets cut bark. He keeps his world small. Target. Elevation. Short relocation. He lets the muzzle settle only long enough to send a round. Then breaks the angle. Every 2 shots he picks a new position 10 to 20 yards away. The small shift. Through smoke. Looks like different guns from different places. The Wolverine's machine gun thumps once to drop a spotter on a tank. He returns to the main gun. The Tiger's turret begins to traverse. Slow and steady. He waits for a sliver of side plate during the turn. He knows the numbers. He knows the thickness. He knows what happens at this range if he hits inside the vulnerable arc. He fires. The tank holds shape for a breath. Then the turret lifts and falls, and the wreck boils smoke. He keeps firing. Slower now. Trucks at the rear claw backward and turn. Some freeze and burn. Infantry spill into the trees and fire blind into fog and muzzle smoke. Rounds whip past the Wolverine. Impacts chip the trunk by his last spot. He shifts again. He aims for another fuel source to keep heat high and block the lane. He puts a round into a truck bed and flame answers. He holds a shot on the flak mount as the crew runs off it. He does not chase men. He shuts vehicles down. In about 30 minutes, the road is a broken chain of smoking hulks and twisted frames. Others are facing away and moving out of sight. He keeps glass on the route for any gun that can still bear. He waits for a flash that means a live barrel and gives no steady target to any that might still aim back. When nothing moves in a way that threatens, he lowers his head. Sweat has chilled along his hairline. His hands shake now and not from cold. Inside, the loader's pace drops. Skin at the base of his thumb is peeled and red. The assistant gunner's voice is down to a rasp. The air smells of hot oil and propellant and the chemical bite of smoke drifting downslope. Thompson asks for water but does not drink. He listens for a heavy return. He keeps sight on the wrecks to catch the particular motion that means a crew is still trying to work a dead hull. When he sees only men moving and flames lowering, he lets his shoulders drop a fraction. He tells the driver to hold position with the engine ready. He makes his hand stop and writes a short line in the notebook. He will need exact details later. He looks at what he has done in plain terms. He sees the run of destroyed vehicles and the way road shape and trees amplified the effect. He sees that by cutting 3rd, 6th, and 8th, he did not just kill 3 machines. He removed joints. The front pinned itself. The center lost order. The rear lost fuel. The column could not flex. He does not use the word victory. He has no use for that word here. He knows each choice could have been wrong. If he had fired at the lead and it had held, the column might have surged forward and found his ridge. If he had missed the fuel, survivors might have worked backward through wrecks. A wrong shot in a forest tells the enemy exactly where to aim. American infantry move up to clear the road. They pass heat and torn metal. Men from the 101st Airborne come through Noville 2 days later and pause at the black frames fused in place and the Tiger split open. They ask which unit made the ambush. The answer is one Wolverine on a ridge. Thompson files his report at battalion headquarters when ordered. He writes facts and attaches sketches made during and after. He draws the road and the ridge and marks his first 3 shots. He adds 2 words in the margin he used in the gun: controlled collapse. In the tent, he hears a short exchange he is not meant to hear. A captain asks another officer if this is insubordination. The answer is that the radio log shows fog and interference all morning. Someone says they will check for friendly fire reports. Someone says there are none for that grid at that hour. He hears the paper move. He is told to rest. He is told someone will pass it up. A day later, a sergeant brings him back the report with 2 notes. His first is a time block confirming the outage. He reads it. The second is a request to sketch the method for other crews. He does it on a board in a cold room with a stove glowing in the corner. He draws the narrow road, the banks, the trees, the column, the numbered vehicles, and 3 circles at 3, 6, and 8. He draws short arrows marking 10 to 20-yard moves between shots and writes that these moves confuse return fire. He writes that the first shot should avoid the strongest armor if the column is jammed and exposed. He writes that the plan depends on terrain, spacing, and a rear element carrying fuel. He writes that it fails on a wide road, or if the lead has room to swing. He keeps the labels short. He leaves the board up. Men cycle through, read it, and ask 2 or 3 questions. He answers in short sentences. He goes back to the gun. He continues the war without fuss. He works when it is his turn to work. He speaks when asked. He keeps the notebook and starts another when it fills. One evening, Captain Langston finds him cleaning the breach and says he was ready to write him up but changed his mind after the line about controlled collapse. The captain asks for plain words. Thompson wipes his hands and says, "If you remove the right support, weight does the rest." The captain says, "Next time, warn me first." Thompson nods. After the fight at Noville, he hears things a soldier hears and nothing more. A radio man tells him the set he used had a bad morning. A clerk from another unit says men in the column believed they were hit by many guns. A medic says 2 prisoners argued about mines. A lieutenant repeats a phrase a prisoner used, something like ghost battery, and laughs without humor. Thompson writes none of that in the notebook. He records distances and times and ammunition spent. He records the loader's hand injury. He records that the driver kept the engine ready without being told twice. He records that the assistant gunner's range calls were on time and steady until the voice went. He returns to Kansas after the war. He rents a small shop that smells like his father's old place. He repairs farm equipment, builds silos, and takes structural jobs where a straight line matters. He does not keep a journal. He does not speak at length about the Ardennes. When a man from a veteran's office asks him in the early years how it went, he says he watched a road, took 3 shots in a set order, moved between them, and kept a route open. When a local teacher asks if he will talk to students, he says yes once and explains angles, distances, and the limits of armor. He says he did not wait for orders, because by the time the radio cleared, the shot would be gone. He says patience is not the same as inaction. He says a single correct sequence can do more than a loud one. The parts of the action he carries are practical. He remembers the Tiger starting its turn in the narrow window that opened on the side plate. He remembers the loader's hands and the need to rotate positions on the crew to save skin. He remembers the hull slipping half an inch on ice during one shift, and what that would have meant if it had gone farther. He remembers that fog saved him as much as aim did. He does not remember words exchanged afterward as much as he remembers where he put the pencil mark on the glass and why. If there is a peak, it sits at the decision to hit the 3rd vehicle first. That choice runs against habit. It is the moment control changes hands. After that, the rest is applying skill in short steps and keeping risk contained. The fight then winds down. Vehicles burn out. Men withdraw. The road cools in patches. The Wolverine holds, then moves to a reserve place. He writes the report. Others read it. Units rotate through. The war moves. The lesson he keeps is simple: a disciplined crew, with a gun that can penetrate at the right angle and range, can make a formation beat itself if terrain and timing are used as multipliers. Precision beats impulse. Short moves between shots complicate the enemy's aim and create the sense of many guns where there is one. Selective shots at nodes turn order into weakness. Communications will fail. When they do, the person who can see the pattern must act. That is not grand. It is required. Years later, he still works late because he dislikes idle hands. In autumn, he stands under a scaffold and marks 2 bolt holes to square a brace. The rule is the same as the one he used in the ridge above the road. Find where the load travels. Cut or fasten at the right point. Let the structure take over. When a neighbor asks about the war, he gives the version with dates, place names, and times. He leaves out smells and small sounds. He leaves out his hands shaking after the last shot. He leaves out everything that does not help a person understand what to do when the radio is dead and a choice has to be made. He does not care what people later call the method. He cares that a gunner can look at a column, judge spacing, and pick the right target first. He tells trainees in a quiet shop years after the war to draw what they see until they can draw it from memory. He tells them to practice moving the hull between shots in small steps until they can do it under stress. He tells them to respect orders and also to recognize the moment when waiting is no longer caution, only loss. He tells them to keep a notebook if it helps. On a winter morning north of Noville, he watched a German column advance toward a key crossroads. Radio contact was weak. Orders to hold fire were standard to prevent friendly fire and preserve larger strikes. He assessed terrain and formation. He fired without a direct order at the 3rd vehicle, then the 6th, then the 8th. He moved between shots to confuse return fire. He caught a tiger on a vulnerable angle during turret traverse. He made a narrow road into a blocked artery long enough for others to hold the line. He expected to answer for it. He was told to draw it for the next crew. He went back to work. He lived quietly. He kept measuring. This is the account of one gunner's decisions told at the scale he lived them, through glass and smoke. With time marked in seconds and targets chosen for function. It is winter. The road is narrow. The window is small. He takes the shot because waiting would surrender the route. Once the first shot is gone, the sequence runs as planned. Not because war is tidy, but because angles and distances obey their own rules even when trees splinter and snow turns to steam. He breathes, checks the glass, and holds the road.